Well, hello there, guys, and welcome to another Common Sense Guys discussion chat. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's a new year. I'll work it out later. But today I'm going to be having two plebs on. No, that's not me insulting them. That's their actual names. Well, it's their screen names. It's not their actual name. Anyway, welcome to plebs. How are you? Please introduce yourself, and that way I can then call you by your proper names and then not insult you.
Well, we wouldn't consider it an insult for one.
Hold on. My name's Don.
And I'm Peter.
And we are two plebs who talk about the news.
There we are. Now you've
That's
seen
not
our
rehearsed.
It's the opener to every show.
That's the opener.
Right, so we've got Don, we've got Peter, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Brexit. We're going to be talking probably about other things, depending on what way the wind fucking blows. It's more of a free-for-all discussion type shit with a kind of a little bit of a plot to it, I suppose. You know me, I don't really like to have any sort of structure straight. I just like talking about specific things and then moving on to what they can occur. So I quite like that sort of stuff. It's interesting.
It's kind of like the random road trip where you have a start point and then wherever you go from there.
Pretty much. That's exactly the way I like it. I like having a loose idea of what you're doing, and then wherever it goes is wherever it goes. Because that's the way that our train of thoughts are going.
Is it the format of the show?
That is generally the format of the show. For us, it's like we have this topic where we start, and then we go off into the left field. Fairly deeply.
Well, literally for you guys, because you literally go off into left field to get the news.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Oh, goodness. I see our subs are already in the chat.
Yay.
Welcome.
Well, the good thing is anybody that is on my side, whatever the fuck that means nowadays, I have linked to Plebs' channel into the description box down below. So if you do find these guys interesting, and I God hope that you do because I do, go and sub to them because they are criminally undersubbed. They actually put a lot of work into what they actually do, and you should go and sub to them. Not because I'm telling you, but because they actually have decent fucking shit.
Thank you.
Now, with that little bit of shitting out the way, I suppose we should have one more announcement and then move on to the topics. Most people know that I'm not allowed to drink because of an operation that I had. Guess what? I'm drinking. Do you know why? Birthday. I'm now 32. I'm old. With that announcement out the way, over and done with, what do you guys actually think about Brexit? From your perspective, do you think it's a good idea to be able to leave the European Union, or what's going on with it, or just sort of an analysis from you guys? What do you think is good about it or bad about it?
Well, I mean, we kind of have that kind of topic here with the California threatening to leave our union.
I am ironically hypocritical about this.
Yes, you are, because we think it would be great for California to leave.
Well, so I need to leave California, and then California can leave the union. That's fine because I'm happy to stay an American. But hell with California. But in the world of actual Brexit, I don't know how you guys haven't left already. I watch a wide variety of British YouTubers or just people from the UK, and all of you were like, well, I mean, a no-deal Brexit, and then there's this big, long speech. I'm like, no. The answer is do what I want, or I'll leave and pound sand.
I'm completely not with you on that one. The one thing that I absolutely hate about most British commentators, and I include this in the people in the news, and even Brexiteers from our proletariat, is sorry, not proletariat, politicians. I'll use correct words later. Is the fact that when they go and talk about a no deal, it's not a no deal. It's World Trade Organization rules. It is what 80% of the fucking world trades on.
All right. So what's the problem here then?
So they ridiculously and regularly get bogged down in like, well, but if we don't have a trade deal with the European Union, then like you'll never be able to go to Europe again. And I was like, yeah, I don't have a trade deal with the European Union.
And we can go there if we wanted to.
I'll go to Europe if I feel like it.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. There's most arguments normally tend to be from that sort of perspective. But I want to go and travel in Europe, or I want to go work in Europe. It's like, well, if you get a job, you get a visa, and if you get a visa, you go and work. It's not fucking hard. It's the way that the world's been working for fucking years.
It's kind of the same situation here.
Right. Apparently, in somewhere in the UK, I guess it's like a legit crucible to get a passport. Because if it's not, I don't understand any of this as a complaint.
Right.
Well, the thing is, because some people don't like having passports, and in some aspects, you don't actually need to have a passport to travel to Europe. In most cases, you just need to have a driving license or some other form of
Any form of ID.
Yeah, some form of identification to prove where you come from and whatnot. And I personally don't like that idea simply because, well, if I can do that, that means people with ill intent can also use that to get wherever they want to as well. And
Right.
if anybody looks about what's happened in, well, let's have a look in the last 3 days when you've had somebody in Cologne try to shoot people. You've had a couple of other people who have tried to be stabbed.
Germany night before last?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, basically, there's been a whole lot of problems going on due to, I would say, mass immigration and the open borders throughout the entirety of the union.
Ironically, they have a very similar problem to the California-U.S. problem. Right?
Yeah, I know.
So as long as one state says we're a sanctuary state, open borders, then the U.S. is a sanctuary state, open borders.
Right, because once they're in, there's no stopping them.
Yeah, no, that's exactly correct. And that's the same thing with Europe. I mean, recently we've been having problems with, you could say, refugees that are from France now because they've had safe port of passage and stayed in France that are traveling across the English Channel to try and get to the UK. But yet they're already a refugee. They're in a safe port of passage, but they're not claiming refugee status to come across to the United Kingdom. They're trying to get into the United Kingdom and then wondering why they're almost dying when they're crossing a quite bad stretch of the ocean. Not the worst, but quite bad, especially with rip currents and side tides and whatnot.
You know, when I was a kid, the first person swam the English Channel. And it was like a really big deal.
Right.
Because they were like, look, we've had other people try to do this before and they all died.
Yes.
Right. It's supposed to be kind of a big deal. And even I understand that one.
Right.
No, that's exactly true. But the thing is, at the minute, we're having so many people that are coming across in dinghies that are bringing like young little kids. And I mean like one in a dinghy with 6 people. And you've got like 5 men and 1 child. Now, don't get me wrong, that's fine if like they're actually generally refugees and they're actually really escaping from plight. But most of these are Iranians.
Right.
Where are they escaping from? I mean,
and there's also still the fact that they have to go through several safe countries just to make it to where they're landing.
Yes.
So familiar.
It sounds very familiar. Like we've talked about this recently.
Right. I can swear we're talking about caravans.
I wonder if you could say that the alt-right's conspiracy. By the way, not alt-right, but you could say that the alt-right conspiracy theory of the left trying to get rid of borders is maybe in effect around the world. Maybe.
Well, it's looking like it. It's looking like it.
I mean, to be fair, there have been open borders activists since World War II at absolute minimum. So
right.
I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory so much as they've just actively said, look, we're getting rid of this. So
right. And, I mean, even the news channels are helping them out with like some of the most recent posts of like remember the little girl who died in custody recently.
The 8-year-old?
Yeah, the 8-year-old.
The 7-year-old?
As opposed to the 7-year-old boy. The way they described it, they were just trying to flee intense poverty.
Yeah.
Trying to, try to sell to us that they're coming from a poor country and that's a reason to give them asylum.
I love this.
That's not a reason.
I'm fleeing intense poverty, as though that is like a guy that is chasing them or something.
Right.
Intense poverty is after me, man. We're all going to die.
Does that mean if I was a homeless person in the UK that I could then claim asylum in the US because, intense poverty?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, and I guess San Francisco is just claiming asylum.
Right. I'm not going to San Francisco, even I've got standards.
Well, I mean, right now, when it comes to the homeless density in California, San Francisco is about it. That and down in LA, but hepatitis started from further down than LA, so it's made it through LA, but it hasn't made it up to San Francisco yet, so it's still safer.
There is a strange race from Los Angeles.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. To be fair, I can't remember the senator's name, but the senator in California at the time was trying to push forward the idea of it's not a crime to intentionally infect your partner with HIV by not telling them.
It's not so much not a crime as it's just a misdemeanor now.
Yeah, it was a federal crime. Sorry, it was a federal crime, and now it's misdemeanor.
Yeah, it used to be a felony, and that they didn't try and pass that; they passed that.
They passed it. It's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite literally good for your health in California at this point.
Well, it would be good for your benefit system. You know, more oppression points.
Right. I'd rather not catch HIV.
Well, what was that? Was it Houston? That stupid little app existed. They had HIV infection parties or whatever it was.
Something like that.
I mean,
yeah.
A while back, but
yeah,
in a completely shocking turn of events, when you go out and intentionally infect each other with HIV, the HIV in the area goes way up. Strange coincidence. I don't know if I can explain it, but
I think it's correlation. You can't literally point out to where it actually happened, but there's definitely a correlation there somewhere.
Right. It may not be causation though.
Apparently, you know, going around and actually infecting people doesn't increase the rate of HIV. Never, honest.
No, I mean, and suggesting that it would is just silly.
I know. I'm being a little bit, you know, HIV phobic. I don't know all the correct words. I'm not up with it at the minute.
HIV phobic. That's coming soon.
Oh, it is. You're just phobic of sick people.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to get sick.
Right. In rather specific ways here. Like, you know, there's a flu going around, which strangely is only hitting mostly progressive places in one state in the Midwest. It's weird. It's like it hates progressives.
Oh, well then.
And, I mean, look, I'm going to get that, which is to say I already have. On the other hand, AIDS, I could skip that.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of want to skip that as well, to be fair.
Right. A common cold, flu, something. Yeah, something my body can naturally get rid of on its own. Sure, fine, not a problem.
Oh, before we move too far away from Brexit, by the way.
Yeah, we are doing that, aren't we?
I occasionally drag us back to topics, but in the way that I'm sure I'm going to piss everyone off here, what you guys need is Trump, and I don't even mean that as like God Emperor Trump POTUS. No, you just need someone who's going to go, I don't care about you. We're going to do this, and you're not going to get it. There are like 5 people in England that meet the qualification for that are politicians, and they ain't running the country right now.
No, I have to actually kind of agree with you. It's one of those things that has now been a narrative in the country, or most countries now westernized, where if you have somebody that's a strong male leader, or as in somebody that, you know, actually sticks to their principles and doesn't really shift away from them, then it's all to do with toxic masculinity and all that type of crap. When in actual fact, no, it's somebody actually sticking to a principle. This isn't toxic masculinity. This isn't even masculinity. This is just sticking to a fucking principle and going with it.
Right.
Right. Yeah, no, yes. You know, being stalwart and sticking to the course is not something that people are accustomed to anymore. They're accustomed to, well, this is what I intend to do, and here's all my compromises along the way so that I don't actually ever get there.
Yep.
Because no one wants to look like a bad guy.
Right.
We got the Cheeto in chief. He doesn't care about that.
Well, I mean, you know, on Inauguration Day that speech was very Hitlerian. So, I mean, it's kind of, you know, it's not going to get any worse for you after that.
Well, you say about speeches. I remember on November 5th when Donald Trump was obviously in France and Macron was giving the speech on the idea of nationalism is bad. Well, the idea of nationalism is bad hasn't really helped you in your economy, has it, Mr. Macron, considering you're literally having shit thrown at your government buildings in protest of it?
Well,
look, France is lost, and I don't know how unpopular. But it's just for years now, France has been lost, right? Like they had a hard push to the right, and they're gonna get a hard economic push to the right, which means they want slightly less socialism. I mean, understand what they're asking for. They're not like, this socialism thing's going bad. No. They're like, oh God, we can't have this one gas tax.
Right.
Yeah. See, the one thing not going too far from Brexit, I'll make this point, we'll see where it goes type of thing. But the one thing that I really love is people like Jeremy Corbyn and Mr. McDonald and a couple of others that have been in the United Kingdom, in the EU themselves, have pushed this idea of Venezuela being the poster child for how socialism works. Surprising how it's now economically collapsed so much, where you have women that are literally cutting their hair off, selling their breast milk and themselves just to escape Venezuela.
So because the internet is pure cancer, I've seen this brought up innumerable times, and the answer from the socialist, no joke, is always, that's because capitalism.
Yeah, it's capitalism's fault.
Well, no, they don't even say that it's the capitalist faults. They literally blame America for it. Well, if America didn't put up the oil prices, then it would have been fine. It's like, but America didn't. America reacted to how Venezuela were reacting to the market. Nothing to do with them literally putting it up because they hate socialism. It's a reaction to the market.
Yeah, it's a reaction to the market, and for the most part, the U.S. kind of stays in line with OPEC. So it's the Saudis' fault.
All right. It wasn't me. Blame Saudi.
Yeah.
So, in all reality, we should leave OPEC. That's never going to happen. But we should.
Well, that's one thing that I as a conservative, I suppose I can quite relatively say that. That's one thing that I really do dislike about most conservatives, is that when they talk about Saudi Arabia and instances that go on and everything else like that, they don't say that we should leave it, because unfortunately most conservatives are what you'd call pragmatic. If we leave Saudi Arabia, we know our gas prices are going to go way up. We know that that's directly going to affect us. But morally, we know we should leave. But we just can't do it.
So that's sort of a fallacious argument. And it's one that I hear all the time, right? Like, if we left OPEC, gas would be $400 a gallon. And it just wouldn't, right? Like, what we're producing gasoline for here in the United States is something like $40 a barrel, and OPEC is selling it at $100 a barrel. So if we left OPEC, the price of gas presumably would cut in half. And we're producing more than we use. So, dear everyone else who could leave OPEC, we would then, have to ship it to you, dear England. I occasionally watch you guys go, but all of Europe is getting all of this oil from Russia, and what would we do if there wasn't a pipeline? You would do what you've always done and go, hey, America, I hear you're selling gasoline. Can we buy some? And we would go, yeah, we have gasoline. You want some?
Right. I remember recently seeing a report that we've become the biggest exporter of oil.
Going almost a year back now.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if we're the biggest exporter of oil and then we left OPEC, I don't see how that's going to really hurt us all that bad.
It definitely wouldn't hurt America. It definitely wouldn't hurt America in that instance. I suppose you could argue that it would hurt the UK and some European countries. I suppose you could argue that because we have 3 gas pipes, one from Saudi Arabia, one from Iran, and one from Russia. And most of them are what powers most of the UK and Europe as a whole. But as you quite rightly just said, why would we pay them money to give us gasoline if we morally dislike them? Why would we just not go to America and go, hey, friends?
Right. Well, it takes a lot longer for us to get it to you. We have to put it by boat. We don't have a pipeline.
Well, that's only kind of true, right? Here's what would happen and what has always happened when we have been giving things to Europe. We string enough ships across the Atlantic that you could walk to Europe, right? Like
exactly.
A few jumps between ships and you'd be there. So, look, the first week might be kind of garbage, but after that, you'd be pretty well set.
No, I completely not agree. It's like if you wanted to set up a direct debit, the first month's really fucking hard, but after that, you don't have to worry about it anymore because it's set up.
Right. I mean, heck, if we're selling oil at half the price, even with shipping fees, you could probably still, drop the per liter price that you guys have.
Guaranteed 25% right off the top. I mean, don't get me wrong, they have a lot of the same problem we do here in California, which is to say, if you look at what you pay for a gallon of gas, like $1.50 of it is for the gas.
Yes, I know.
That's true. Yeah,
and it's
12% of 12% of what we pay on gasoline is just a VAT tax, let alone the tax to the actual people we're actually paying the gas for in the original.
Right. Yeah, no, we got that here, especially in California, because we require a special blend as opposed to everywhere else in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're so the state.
So gas in California always costs more because, well, there's more to it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just to do with taxes, but then again, I'm sure you know more about that than I do.
It's eye-opening to go start tracking down how much what you pay is in taxes. And it's just as true for the UK, which I did a bunch of years ago. Is like, by the time you get right down to it, you could cut the price of nearly every product you guys have. If you went all Ancapistan tomorrow, it would be like half the price for everything. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Man, don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating that or anything, but it's a lot of taxes is all I'm saying.
Yeah, almost to the point of way too much, especially considering most of the tax isn't actually going back to the government that's taxing it. It's actually going back to the company, which is more worrying.
Well, we're going to break into my autistic portion of the world here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sure.
Mandatory price increases by the government that go to fund the companies. Like there is a group of people who advocated that rather openly. And we're going to surpass Poe's law here because those people were the fascists of the 40s.
Oh,
just saying.
Oh dear. I suppose that's another thing. I mean, you've obviously got Antifa over where you are and so on and so forth. And with the idea of Brexit and everything else like that, everybody that voted for independence, and I'll quickly go into a fallacy that we actually have in the UK as well at this moment in time, or what I believe is one. You have everybody that's on the left that says that if you wanted to be independent and a country run for yourself, rather than being a country dictated to by another country or a section of countries or states, to put it for Americans to understand, would be really, really interesting, because most leftists believe that the government themselves should be all powerful, or nigh on all, not all, obviously, hashtag. But then we have people in Scotland that would say that people that voted Brexit were xenophobes and racist and whatnot, and all the other buzzwords.
Right.
But then those same people would then say that they would vote to leave the United Kingdom, which all that is a political union, because they hate the English and the way that they dictate to them. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the most intelligent person in the world, but I kind of see a comparison there. I'm not sure if you do.
Right. Yeah, we do, in fact, see that comparison.
When somebody from Scotland got up and was giving that speech right at the beginning of Brexit, they were closing down the idea of the next vote to leave the UK, and I was like, guys, come on.
Right.
That's exactly the same thing. I've done a video on this called the Brexit Scottish fallacy. And I've had a couple of Scottish independence people come on and tell me that I was lying about everything that I've ever said, that I'm racist towards the Scottish. But then when I point out that they're doing exactly the same thing as what they're telling me that I'm doing to them, they end up to not talk to me anymore.
Yeah, that we find that happens a lot when we're like, you're doing the exact same thing you're complaining about.
Right.
Shut up.
There's a lot. I need to leave this conversation right now.
Yeah.
Oh man, no. One of those things that I intermittently mention on the channel in what used to be the Friday shows, but we've just changed formats. So
right.
Whenever I feel like it, I guess at this point, is that like everyone that is doing all of the things like Brexit, like Trump saying America first and all these things, needs to go find their what is it, self-confidence.
Yes.
Because it's always like, well, this is clearly a good idea for a million reasons. Oh, please stop calling me a racist. And,
right.
And just repeatedly, over and over and over again. That's the way that it works.
Yeah, no, I've completely noticed that. I've talked to a couple of people that are probably left-wing. I don't really want to label them as such because whatever, I don't really know what they are. But most of them would say to the effect of, I believe in no borders. I believe that everything should be this, this, and this, and this. And then when you counter with actual points, not saying, well, I dislike them because of their color or because of where they come from, but I don't want to have people come into my country that might be criminals. Bang, that's it. You're a fucking racist. It's like, how can you say that everybody from the Middle East is this or that? It's like, I didn't. I said I don't want criminals coming in. That's from everywhere.
I'm not saying I want vetting to make sure bad people don't get in. I'm not saying I don't want anybody to get in.
Exactly.
Well, look, I have seen maybe 3 people carry that to its logical conclusion, right?
Right.
Which is to say, or at least what they find to be a logical conclusion. There is no way that you are going to Pakistan,
right,
or Afghanistan and going, dear local government of country where these people are coming from, do you have good records on them? Because the answer is no, they don't, right?
Right.
And so they're like, and the only person I've ever seen come back with anything intelligent was to say, look, you want vetting. There is no vetting. The only actual answer here is no refugees. And I went, that's fair enough. I mean, I get why you're saying that. On the other hand, certainly we could, for example, pull up the terrorist watch list and go, you were involved in a bombing in Saudi Arabia. You're not coming.
Right.
I mean, I'm willing to set the bar kind of low here, but can we have a bar?
Yes, we would like a bar, I thought.
I'm sure that you've heard about the Asia Bibi case, the case of where she was done for blasphemy laws and was going to be held to basically be killed. And nigh on, I don't want to over-exaggerate, I think it's around 60 to 70% of the whole country of Pakistan wanted to kill her themselves because she was a Christian that may or may not have said something in the heat of an argument over a cup of water.
Yeah.
I don't really want any of that 60% coming to any, not my country, but any country.
Right, where you are. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
That's all I care about. It's like, I don't care about the rest of the 40% or the 30%. Fine, bring them. Come integrate. Give us the best that you've got. That's fine, no problem. Try not to send, as Donald Trump would say, they're not sending their best.
Right.
Well, that's
the whole thing is they're not sending them to begin with.
Well, somebody is sending someone, right?
Well, I mean, it looks that way.
We have another caravan going.
Yeah, I mean, when we see the caravans, and we're like, it sounds like that's an organized event. Therefore, yes, someone's sending them. But
right.
the general crossing of the borders, no, those are people just coming here of their own accord.
Intermittently, I mean, we've done a lot of work on this, so some of it, yes. But and look, make no mistake, the who is sending people is often the wrong target here too, because certainly
Definitely.
Mexico City is not sending these people, but the very cartels send lots of people.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
In a very similar circumstance for the UK, I mean, the returning ISIS fighter thing that has been going on for about a year now, I don't even. This is well beyond me. I don't get how you go, we know you fought for ISIS. Yes, come to my country.
No.
It was more of a case of, this is how stupid our fucking country is. It was more of a case of, we knew that they left to fight ISIS because they were fucking English before they went off, or they were born in this country before they went off and whatnot. We know this because people told them, the country, that.
I think we've got some mute action.
I think you lost sound. You lost sound.
There's a side chat. I will type in it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, chat. While he's fixing that, how are you all doing? Uh-oh. I don't know. Chat, are we muted?
Oh, nope. Okay, so can you hear us? All right, so he's got our sound. We cannot hear you at all.
Apparently, we're gonna have to do this through sign language from here on out, which is bad because I don't speak sign language.
Me either.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, if it was our usual chat, and throwing the middle finger up the whole time would work. But
That's true. See, chat, he's here for you.
Yes. Well, since we have to work on
Merkel got him.
Merkel got him. So to answer a question that was in chat earlier, that is not relevant to any of the conversation we had from, was it Janice? I think Janice RPR. That movie you were asking about, I believe, starred Justin Timberlake, and I think he has a relatively short movie list, so you can probably find the movie that way.
What the hell are you talking about?
He asked about a movie title. You or she?
I'm back.
Yes, you are.
I can actually do technology every now and again. It doesn't work very often, but apparently I can do it. Yeah. What I was going on about was that with people that went off to fight for ISIS was actually English people that actually went off to do that, or people born in the country, whatever way you want to imply or suggest or whatever. And the reason why we knew that they were fighting for ISIS is because their fucking families told us that they went off to fight for them. And then when they want to repatriate themselves to come back to the country, our government's like, yeah, you've only killed a couple of people. You need to come back. It's fine. We'll accept you.
I feel somewhat confident that Britain has treason laws. Like, am I missing something here?
They were just going home to try to reestablish a safe country so they could all go back.
So they say, yeah. So they say is actually part of their argument for it, believe it or not. Is that, we just believed in the cause. We just killed, women, children, and other people that were in the country to repatriate ourselves with that country. And as we're losing, we'll come back.
Step beyond what we were hanging the Nazis for at The Hague, right? Because they were all just going, I was just following orders. These people came back and went, but it was a super good idea, man.
Right.
I believe in the caliphate. It's like, yeah, I want you to come back into the country. Come back. Yeah. I believe in the caliphate.
The caliphate must be spread. I mean, many moons ago, we threw up a whole crusade thing to stop you from coming up in here. But by all means, open arms now.
We fell up 2 crusades.
Yeah.
Well, there was the 2 big crusades, so we can't forget the children's crusade either.
Dun dun dun.
Are we gonna have a history off?
No, we're not.
No, I don't want to do history offs. The only thing I will say is that the Templars, they weren't English; they were French.
Okay.
Back to France is lost.
Well, were they lost ever since they kicked out the ass kickers? Because I mean, the Templar did a lot of ass kicking.
Yeah.
They still lost.
Kicked them out, and then they were lost.
So I say France is lost, and that might be the wrong term. It might just be France has always been worthless.
Okay. So, now, if there's anybody French,
France has always been that loser at school that you're just like, I want you to do well, and you keep trying so hard, but you keep falling in shit.
It's the retarded kid, right, in school. Oh, man, you opened a door and you only hit yourself in the face twice. Good job, Timmy.
Well done.
All right. It's an improvement.
Anyway, Brexit.
Yes, Brexit. I mean, I guess the core idea of it is if staying within the union is only hurting, then you should leave.
Clearly it's not only hurting, right? And this is where everyone gets bogged down, is what exactly is happening.
Well,
on the other hand,
I don't know exactly what's happening.
There is a pretty easy way in my mind to take a look at this, which is to say, pull up the European Union list of rules and go, that's like the Federal Register in the U.S. No.
Right.
And it's not honestly more complicated than this to me. And I know that makes me just like toss the idea of Brexit away almost immediately, constantly. But anytime you start to try and get bogged down in like, well, it's only terrible, you are wrong, right? I mean, there are good things that have come out of the European Union.
Oh, definitely.
At least one, right? If nothing else,
there's lots of good things that have come out of the European. And for instance, a lot of people would say about now. When I say this, because I know most Americans hate NATO, but most Europeans are like, it's not bad. It's a fighting force. Because, we're not proud of our armies.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
So you have things like NATO, you have the things that we're able to roll with peace and whatnot. I don't believe in that personally, but a lot of people do. That the reason why we have so much peace is because we're unionized and whatever. I don't understand how so many people would go, oh, the European Union is just bad. Don't get me wrong. I don't like the way the European runs its countries, but the way that it takes money and redistributes it sometimes is a good thing. I don't think it is a good thing, but it can be. Well, are good things about the European Union. Most of it's shit, but there are some.
So now you're just talking about who you want doing that, right? Because I will forego my usual, goddamn it, the entire UK is a bunch of socialists who likes wealth redistribution, but understand that's behind a lot of this. But you're still mostly just arguing about who you want doing it, right? So if you as a country want what amounts to foreign aid to be given to, I don't know, presumably Greece at this point, because I don't know who else you're giving it to in Europe. But
we're not giving it to anybody in Europe. Most of our money's still going to Iran and Pakistan at the moment.
Yeah, that figures. But
that's regardless of petrol, though.
If you want that sort of thing done, right, and it's not for some sort of trade, then what is the benefit to having a bunch of unelected douchebags on the mainland Europe do it, as opposed to going to your own parliament and going, hey, we should give them money? And the answer, as far as I can tell, is none. Because at least if it was your own parliament, as all of you have said about 1 million times, you could at least have an argument about it. When it's it's like, no, we're just doing this.
Right.
Yeah. No, completely and utterly correct. I mean, you look at Article 13 that's coming out in the next couple of bloody days. It's a case of most, like, say, for instance, the UK voted against it. Because we're in the bloody kingdom, because we're in the union, so to speak, we have to accept the law of it until we leave, which is ridiculous to me. Same as all the other countries that would have voted against it, or any countries that have voted against anything. That's not how democracy is supposed to work, not sovereign democracy. You could argue that it's the way that democracy works in countries, but not when it's a sovereign nation. If a nation themselves decide that they don't want to do something, then the nation should not do it, not be forced into it. I thought that was an act of war.
Right. Well, so you again end up with a thing close to nearly every American that talks politics hard that's not a crazy commie, which is to say more localized government is better. I mean, the closer you get to whomever it is that is governing you, the more you can directly influence them, which is at this point a fairly reasonable complaint about Washington in this country, because they don't care what the hell I have to say. But my local city councilman, I go down there and I'm like, look, damn it. And he's not going to listen to me because California's 38 million people. But still, at least I can go down there, right?
Exactly.
Right. And I can't even imagine what it would take all of you guys to actually go to the EU and get so much as 5 minutes of floor time. That's not a thing.
No, you can't do that. Normal people can't get invitations or anything else like that to go and speak at the European Union or anything. The European Union asks you because you are special in some particular way or some forth. But I would like to just add to that even with the idea of localized sovereignty with the UK itself, and why so many people are so pissed off with the idea of it now, is that even when you do get the idea of sovereignty and the idea of governments being able to listen to you, and as in a referendum or referendize, it's a case of they now have an actual point of direction to go on, and yet they still go, well, we're not sure if you actually voted the right way, so let's reword the question and put in a couple of different answers for you. So let's get another one.
That is a thing, by the way, that 25 years ago, we criticized Stalin around the world for doing, right? Like, you voted wrong, vote again.
Right.
We knew this was wrong then. What happened?
I didn't get the answer I wanted. Vote again.
Right.
Exactly that. They did that with the Lisbon Treaty for the Irish.
Yep.
First of all, the Irish overwhelmingly voted not to join the European Union, or at that point, the customs union, or thereof at that point. And then they asked them to vote again. In some logical, I mean, they're Irish, so don't take it the wrong way. But in their logical ideas, they thought, well, what we'll do is to prove them wrong, we will protest vote by not voting. Oh, look, joining one. I wonder how that happened. Irish people.
Right. I mean, they probably would have gotten more leeway if they said, by the way, free pint for the vote.
Well, I mean, it is Ireland.
Right.
Well, that's the point that I was making. The thing is that because they thought that they were going to protest the vote and the protest of the vote was going to go below, for a referendum to work in the UK, I'm not sure what it is in Ireland or Republic of Ireland, but the percentage must be higher than 36% of the turnout for the referendum to be a mandate to the government. Anything lower than 36%, then it has to be redone. So I think they were trying to do a protest vote to try and get it below that percentage of the turnout to show that we don't even want to vote on it. Kind of backfired, though.
Well, yeah. Look, one of these things that we probably all need to just come to terms with this at this point is that nearly half of all of our countries think that things like the European Union, the UN literally being the world's government, these sorts of things are a good idea, right? And at the moment, lots of us, in lots of countries, people who disagree with that outnumber the people who agree with that. But you better believe staying home from votes like this means you lose.
Yeah. You should always stand out and voice your opinion, or at the very least at that point in time you could say you fought the good fight, as opposed to I rolled over and took it up the ass.
Yeah, pretty much. Which is what I think is going to happen with the UK. I think that we're going to get a second. They're going to force a second referendum, and the Brexiteers and whatnot are going to go, "Nah, we don't want to vote again." I think that's ridiculous.
Half of them seem to be saying that, right? Well, we already had a vote, and we'll just stick with that one. And okay, I mean, as long as that's actually what's happening, then yeah, by all means, say that to your heart's content. The moment they actually put that thing on a ballot, you better be there.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, I definitely agree with that. The thing is with the second referendum is that I wouldn't be too opposed to a referendum if the questions were leave and remain. But the questions are not going to be leave and remain. It's going to be remain. Theresa May's whatever that thing is.
Checkers plan?
Yeah, that whatever that deal is supposed to fucking represent. It's going to be World Trade Organization, no deal. And it's going to be something else. You're going to split the Brexit vote into at least two different places.
Right.
And you're going to have one remain vote. Now, my maths is shit, but if you have 25% in one and 25% in another, you have 50%. Now, if you have remain that has 46%, what percentage then wins? Is it the two 25s that add up to over 50? Or just below, just 50? Or is it the 46%? Guess what one's going to win?
The 46%.
And look, these are games that have been played since the beginning of time. So I would fully, I mean, at least since the beginning of the idea of democracy. So I'd fully expect that. Like that, you're going to get either that or quite literally just no leave left on the ballot, right? Like it'll be remain or halfway remain. No, wait a minute. What I want's not even here.
Yeah. Right. But that's the thing. The thing that I love about Theresa May's deal is that it has unified Remainers and Brexiteers to go, fuck that deal. You know you've gone and fucked up when both polarizations have both looked at the deal and gone, yeah, this is shit.
This doesn't work. This doesn't work for either side.
You could have made this worse if you tried. Thanks
exactly. Which begs the question, though, if you're not appeasing any side, who are you appeasing?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I haven't read the entirety of that thing because to some degree I just don't care that much. But
all you really need to know on this one is that the backstop itself is if we do not make a deal, then we cannot leave the European Union.
Wait, what? Okay.
That's the backstop. That's basically the backstop in an essence. If we cannot make a trade deal and accept a separate trade deal that we make ourselves in a prolonged period of time, then we cannot leave the European Union. And even if we do make a deal that would trigger the vote on if we can leave or not, the European Union has to say that we can leave before we can leave fully.
I see Juncker deciding you guys can leave. That's totally going to happen.
Right.
I mean,
Apparently so.
I mean, if you leave a portion of the decision-making process to the place you want to leave, and they don't want you to leave, you're not leaving.
no.
Hey, we're English. We can't even win wars anymore. Leave us be.
Right. Like for say, California wanting to succeed or do some of the things it's trying to do, it still requires permission from the rest of the United States.
Yeah.
Like breaking into 5 states.
That won't happen because the rest of the country thinks that all of California is San Francisco. So
Right. Or LA.
what are you going to do? Yeah. There is no other California, which you might think was weird if you, for example, looked at a map.
Right.
But,
To be fair, isn't California 3 times the size of the whole of the United Kingdom as a whole?
California itself is pretty close to the size of the UK as a whole.
Okay,
Actually, it is strangely comparable. Like, we've got ish 39 million people right now, and so do you guys.
no,
don't
we
get
have
me wrong.
64.
It would need to be a contiguous body of land to be the size of California, but we're only something like 20% bigger than you in physical land, of which ish 20% is effectively unusable. So, I mean, it is strangely comparable.
Right.
I will have to say that we have almost double the amount of populace that you do. We have around about 64 million people as a populace for the UK. Roughly.
Is it?
Yeah, roughly.
I don't look at that. I got no clue.
It might be England that I'm thinking of is 38 million people.
Yeah,
Not-
England's a little bit lower. A little bit lower. But the UK as a whole is around about 64 million, 700,000, something similar to that.
Give us 2 or 3 more caravans. We'll catch you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah. we like our mass immigration here, apparently.
True.
But I think that's one of the reasons why people in themselves were voting to actually have Brexit and actually go for Brexit. I don't think it's all to do with this immigration sort of stuff. I think most people have looked at the idea of democracy in themselves or their understanding of it and gone, why are we leaving our laws and our structures left to somebody else that's not even in the country? And I think that's resonated with a lot more people than what the idea of immigration has done. Because how can you have democracy in your own country if somebody else is telling you what your democracy is?
Right.
So
I've clearly watched from afar on this. And the one thing that I have been near certain is going on, because every single talk about Brexit ever has mentioned that you can't fish your own waters, but the Italians can. And this is like the through line for every single person talking about Brexit, which is a policy question that is not immigration. Now, don't get me wrong, lots of people have complained about immigration, but effectively every single person I've ever heard talk about Brexit goes, please explain to me why an island can't fish its own waters, but a peninsula, 1,000 miles away can.
Yeah.
Right. And that is definitely a good point to bring up and such.
Oh, it's a great point. It's an absolute great point, especially when even in the EU laws, France recently, and I'm sure you probably heard of the fisher wars that happened in November, December time, which was basically Britain's fishers, which were allowed to do this by EU law, were able to fish part of France's stocks of fish. And as the British were doing this, the French bigger ships were literally throwing Molotovs and rocks and ramming the British ships. I had to make sure I didn't say anything else that was different to that. But we're literally ramming the ships and we're basically trying to sink the British ships. Guess who won the appeal in the European Union for who can fish those waters?
Well, you're mid Brexit. You can't win anything right now. I'm like,
Right.
I mean,
But even not being the aggressor, France trying to win a war that they would never be able to win again, and apparently the European Union is like, well, Germany, we're behind you. Tell them that they can fuck off.
Right.
well, and that's that is still lost the physical fight. Chat's got your back here, but this is, I mean, this is a problem I have with things the U.S. does. Right, there is no one on this planet that is throwing down with the United States military. No one. And look, whether or not anybody else could win in some sort of protracted war, nobody wants to. So all of this stuff where we go, yes, that's okay, little micronation, you can do whatever you want and we'll back down, is, I mean, we need to not be in those kinds of agreements. And that is exactly what the EU is doing to you guys all the time, right? Like, I mean, seriously, what is France going to do if the British Navy just rolls in and goes, all right, we're just going to stay here?
Well, I suppose they do the exact same thing that would happen when the French citizens decide that they're going to revolt against the French government. They call in UN and NATO to try and defend themselves.
Right.
Because, they can't do it themselves.
Right.
Yes. Right. So, though, again, in this situation, supposedly for the past 150 years, there's been a special relationship between England and the United States. So if this really was, the EU went, oh, we're going to call these people. Presumably the people they're calling is us, and we're going to go, yeah, we like England anyway, so get fucked.
Exactly that. I mean, the thing is with people that do with Brexit and do with the European Union, the biggest argument I've ever heard from most Remainers is, well, if we leave Europe, how are we going to trade with them? It's like, you do realize that because we want to leave Europe, we don't want to leave the continent of Europe. We physically can't do that. We just don't want Europe telling us what the fuck to do.
Like, I mean, you guys are aware that those lines separating the countries are just imaginary?
Right. Like,
a car can still drive across those barriers without a problem.
Apparently, what they're going to do is they're going to load up the island on a boat and move it.
Apparently. Or,
which, by the way, it sort of ends the trade discussion because you could just park it off the coast of Maine and then trade with us.
No, they're going to beat Trump to the next Great Wall.
Well, that's it.
But no, I do love that argument from Remainers. It's like, oh, well, we won't be able to trade with Europe. It's like, well, if Europe doesn't want to trade with us, then we won't be able to. But we want to trade with Europe. We've always wanted to trade with Europe. We always want to. The same as we want to trade with the rest of the world, but because we're part of Europe, we can't unless Europe let us, which is the reason why we voted for Brexit, because we wanted to do it ourselves.
Look, not to make too big of a deal of us, but I make a big deal of the U.S. all the time. If I had to choose, if I was a country that was not Europe, the trade union, or the United States, if I was, I don't know, Canada, and I had a choice of trading in Europe or trading with the United States, I'm trading with the United States 11 days out of 10, right? Because we buy everything.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. I mean, let's take, for instance, that the Remainers' argument is correct, that we won't trade with Europe for the rest of our lifetime. It's not going to happen, but let's use that as an argument. What about the rest of the Commonwealth? What about the rest of the world? Europe is not the biggest trading bloc in the world. For a start, the US is, then followed by China, then followed by India at this moment in time by growth and whatnot. So why can't we go and trade with the biggest portions of the world that are actually growing rather than the European Union, which is shrinking?
Yeah. Well,
I've never understood that.
So it's, to some degree, you're going to end up fighting, ironically, conservatism, right? So, well, I know I can trade with the EU right now because I'm doing it, and it might be difficult and different trading with other people, and that might go badly, right? Which, by the way, is what the left has accused the right of saying since the beginning of time, and is the argument they're making all over the world right now.
Yeah, no, completely not true. Completely not true. As soon as you start talking about trading, they go, oh, yeah, but you're trying to exclude the people that you're already trading with. It's like, no. Who's ever said that we want to exclude those people or the people that we already trade with. Nobody has ever suggested that we want to be xenophobic about the actual people that we trade with. In actual fact, Brexiteers are actually supposedly looking at the fact of we want to trade with the world. Why are you being so... Oh, what's the left's word? Oh, what's the left's word? Racist about the rest of the world compared to the European Union. Why is the European Union so high compared to the rest of the world?
Well, let's all be honest for a moment and say that it's because it's a massively progressive institution, and you can like that, right?
I wouldn't use the word progressive. I'd probably change that as a corrupt. But yeah, I agree with your point.
Yes, but they say progressive.
Well, it's strange how often those things
progressive corruption,
like this, right?
Yeah. Progressive corruption.
Yeah. I mean, they're almost synonyms at this point.
Didn't they?
They pretty much are, to be fair. I'm progressive. Wait, are you in government?
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're vaguely realistic about this for a moment, what is, in my opinion, fairly likely to happen, because having listened to some of the EU talk about this, they are spoiled children. They throw temper tantrums and do things that I would never let my kid do. And so there is a good chance that if the UK as a whole just went, that's it, we're out, for at least 6 months, you would not be able to trade with Europe in any way, shape, or form. And then immediately after that, what would happen is you guys would go find somebody like us or China or whomever and start shipping your products here and buying your products from here. And then Europe would go, we want some of that.
Exactly that. No, this is completely not true. I mean, I do... It's, as I was saying before, those arguments are the arguments that I absolutely laugh my ass off at. Oh, well, you don't want to trade with Europe. It's like, why the fuck me leaving political union means that I don't want to trade with them? Can you not understand the differences between political union and trade? How are they synonymous? They're not.
You're suffering from a problem that is existent in all political talk, right? So that you as a trade union, it was established as a trade union, so you could trade, and it would be easy to trade with the rest of Europe. Trade. And then, like every other massive bureaucracy, it became a political power and started to enforce its will. And so when you guys go, look, there's no reason we're doing any of this political nonsense, all of your remainers go, but trade, right?
Yeah.
And the EU is a trade union. And you're not, like, there is an absolute refusal to acknowledge, like, well, yeah, okay, so there is a trade union. I gotcha. There is also all the rest of this.
Yes.
We're fine with trading. We would like to keep the trade portion. Them telling us what to do can get fucked.
Right.
Yeah. That's basically Brexit summed up in a nice little bow. We want to be friends, but please stop telling us what to... It's like a dad and a son trying to separate their relationship. I still want to be your son, but stop fucking telling me what to do. I don't live here anymore.
I became an adult and moved out. You don't run my life.
Right.
Exactly that. I still want to borrow money off of you every now and again. You know, I still want to borrow your car if I can't get out or something, or can you come pick me up? But you know, I don't want to live here anymore.
Right. And I'll understand the occasional call. Could you come mow the lawn because I threw my back out? Right. You know, it becomes a mutual trade relationship, no longer the person telling the other one what to do.
Yeah.
But well, so and therein is the problem is a lot of the people that are on the other sides of these arguments, I don't think ever make that step, right? They are the people who, you know, I'm thinking about buying a new car, so what I need to do is go talk to my dad, right?
Yeah, no, I see your point. Are you trying to say that they would still be living with mom and dad and don't want to move out?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's fair enough.
These are that guy in New York that his parents had to file an eviction notice when he was 30, right?
30, yeah.
And look, you're stereotyping. I've been along on my own. Yeah, sure. I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that doesn't apply to that's a Remainer. But on the other hand, on a majority basis, listening to them at protests scream at people and the things they say, it's all the same stuff. I don't want to actually have to take care of myself. No. And I don't think I can. Therefore, you can't. Therefore, the country can't. So we need Daddy European Union.
Yes. No, I completely agree with that analogy. I mean, I'm sure that I come up with it, but I agree with the analogy. But I will say that a lot of people that are using this analogy, and I include myself into this, don't take it far enough. So we have the actual point of the analogy of all of this going on and how different people react and that. And it goes from one side to the other. And one side is, I take personal responsibility for what I do. And the other side is, well, Daddy said.
Yeah, right. It's all an effort to shirk responsibility. I don't want to be responsible for myself. When things go bad, I want to yell at somebody else, not look at my own hands.
Yes. Yeah. No, I completely understand that. I mean, taking, for instance, mass shootings that happened in the US, and I use that as a colloquial because mass shootings really doesn't have any sort of definition in the US, depending on what fucking go on anymore. But if you use mass shootings as a point of this, we need to take responsibility. You have one side going, we need to take the guns away. And you actually have one side, well, what's the actual problem? And the actual problem is, nigh on most of the time, mental health issues. So what do we need to do? We need to take the guns away. No. We have a mental health issue. No, we need to take the guns away. No, you have a mental health issue.
Well, also, but to break that down further still, they give you this large number of mass shootings, but whenever they're talking, they're really only talking school shootings.
Yes.
And because if they want to handle mass shootings that fall under that classification, they need to combat gang violence.
Well, yes, they don't really want to talk about that, especially when most mass shootings are classified as anybody that has been 3 people or more injured, and that can include BB guns as a mass shooting, as far as I remember.
And I do believe when we call mass shootings, it is 3 or more people killed.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a herein is the problem. This is why I'm such a definitions jerk. Because look, if you talk to the feds, it is 3 or more people are dead, 6 or more people are injured, and 1 person is dead, or it's not a mass shooting, which is a fairly strict definition, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it gives you 2 choices, but it's fairly strict and it has a decently high bar. However, whenever you talk to people who hate guns, they go, well, 3 or more people were injured. And if there was a gun within 100 miles, it was a mass shooting, right?
Right. The funny thing that I always love about these people that take away guns, and obviously I'm English, I don't have a fucking gun. I would love to have a gun, but I don't have one. But I love it when they go, oh, well, a mass shooting kills more people in a couple of seconds than anything else in the world. It's like bombs, trucks of peace, cars, knives. No, 21 people got murdered in Japan with a mass stabbing. Does that not count?
Well,
I thought it was China.
Maybe. But
no, it was Japan. It was Japan. 21 people got murdered in Japan due to a woman going around a care center.
Oh, this is okay. This is different.
Because what you're talking about is, I think, the same time as Sandy Hook.
Yeah, basically the one I was referring to is on the same day the Sandy Hook shooting happened in China. Somebody did a mass stabbing, and got the same body count.
Yeah. So England's on top of that, man.
Right, I know.
We do like our stabbings now. Though, to be fair, we are catching up with shootings. We do like a shooting now, apparently, in London.
Well, I have long been told by the likes of Piers Morgan that England has no shooting deaths of any kind because they have gun control.
Right.
Which I have long said, look, the British are generally kind of a peaceful people. You can, but imperialism at me all you want. But, since then, the UK is kind of a calm place other than the IRA, So.
But even before that IRA and everything else of that, and even with Piers Morgan using his, British people don't shoot each other, we stab each other. Even if you want to sidestep the stabbings, which, okay, there's still people dying, it's still a case of there's at least every year, on average, 6 people that die due to shootings in a country that doesn't allow any guns. Well, and that's every year on average.
Be fair to yourself. You guys are allowed to have a shotgun as long as it's like disassembled and left in a plastic mold when not being used, or whatever ridiculous thing that at some point I looked into your gun laws because I got a bunch of Brits going, we are allowed to have guns. And I went,
of course we know that. We've watched Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Right. Though, as I was cued into, God, going on about a year now, Google the Ludi submachine gun sometime, because that's a British invention as far as I can tell. And it's effectively an Uzi. The Australians are having problems with it right now too. So in a shocking turn of events, what we always said would happen, we're out of sound again.
You've lost sound again.
But in a shocking turn of events, what we always
you're off.
Said would happen, people will just make these things.
No, exactly what happened. Just like last time, he can hear us.
Yeah.
No, no, we cannot hear you. You have lost sound again.
Can't call it a black market. Nope. That's racist.
Yeah, we're gonna go to comments until we're breaking out the headphones.
Right. Anyway, Chad, how y'all doing? Until nope. Got
nothing.
Let's see here.
Nope, not fixed. Nothing.
I can't say. They ruled the waves in the world for 300 years by peace. So, and look, Ogre, that's what I'm getting at, right? Like there was a time where Britain pushed out around the world. My country exists because of various colonialism plans, right? I got you. On the other hand, certainly at least since World War II, you haven't been big on the violence, at least at home. Again, outside of the IRA, but. Now we're to the Irish and not the English.
Right.
I know where to get guns in Japan, and they got some really nice guns you can't get anywhere else in Japan. Very well made and expertly machined. Also, they got strictest gun control laws. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Because you have to go through like a mental evaluation and a bunch of other stuff to be able to get a gun in Japan. There we go. Whistling.
I got back. I'm back again.
You are.
Yeah, I'm not happy about this. I'm going to have to throw my fucking other Yeti microphone because that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's how I ended up with 2.
Yeah, that's how we ended up with 2. Actually 3, because we got one at my house now.
Yeah, that's 1. There should be another one around here somewhere, which is a snowball. That one's an Anana. I don't keep microphones, honestly.
Well, not that I blame you.
Right.
So, what were we talking about before I rudely interrupted the conversation by having technical difficulties?
I think that you guys are allowed to have guns.
Yeah, you guys are allowed to have guns.
Farmers are allowed to have shotguns. We are under no circumstances ever allowed to have any handguns for any reason. And as for assault rifles or thereof, so to speak, we're not allowed to have any whatsoever. The only things we're allowed to have is shotguns, and that's only if you're hunting.
Right. I believe the where we actually left off, you were talking about the Ludi.
Oh, yeah, the Ludi submachine gun.
The Ludi submachine gun, and that's roughly when you cut out when you're trying to respond to that.
I have no idea what a submachine gun is. No, I'm joking. No, I mean, I can't believe that people would actually use anything like that as an argument most of the time. As in, oh, well, this place is allowed guns, this place isn't allowed guns, so we should compare the two as a comparison between how crimes are enacted. Especially the way that somebody like Piers Morgan would try to use it as in, oh, well, England's safe. It's like, no. more people were stabbed and beaten to death than in anywhere else.
Right. It's the issue is they only use a dishonest comparison. Like,
Yeah.
we'll only compare gun violence and gun deaths. I'm like, well, they're not allowed there. There's much less of them. How about we just compare violent crime rates? And you find that it's a lot closer of a comparison at that point in time.
Well, so you also end up in this thing that is I've started to see happen, where people are literally just openly saying, we don't care about the rest of the violence. It's only gun violence that matters.
Right.
As though you're less dead when you get stabbed.
Right.
But I think that's the reason of them trying to make a distinction that, we're talking about gun violence, because most people, when they talk about gun violence, we go, well, what about the Orlando shooter? Does that count as gun violence? Because obviously it's a terrorist attack. But does that count? And then when you talk about terrorist attacks, what else kills people?
That was workplace violence.
Or was it a hate crime? I don't know what the left wants to call it anymore.
Oh, God.
Right.
Hate crime. Whew. So on a semi-regular basis, you guys are screwed. And I almost never get pushback on this, which is amazing because, if somebody came by and was like, the U.S. is just screwed, I regularly have been like, shut up. No, we aren't. On the other hand, every single time I talk to a Brit, I'm like, yeah, you guys are fucked. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
Every single one of you is like, yeah, basically.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
And, it's always straight to the same thing. Dankula, right? Like, I mean.
Oh, him and his dog.
Right. Can't make jokes anymore. We're
not allowed to joke about that at all.
We're through the Rubicon here. There's no going back. We're done.
Time for jail.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. It's even worse than the Nazi pug. You also have a coloured woman, a person of colour, female, that that was reciting a Pacific rap lyric because somebody had died and liked that rap lyric, and because they did that, they got sent to prison for reciting it for racism.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous to me. That's just a case of there's so many other things in this country that needs to be policed. I don't know. Stop ISIS fighters coming back might be a fucking start. But, instead let's put people that are people of colour that are apparently racist for citing... I can't even say it. For doing rap tunes.
You're right. Returning ISIS fighters, stopping the grooming gangs, the new emerging rape culture. But no, what we really need to police is eulogies.
What?
Yes.
Where the hell is it? The Rotherham.
Yes.
Which I caught an article like a few weeks back now. Is still going on?
Yes. Yes, no, absolutely correct. Yes, Rotherham is still going on at this moment in time. There is also a particular female, I think her name's Smith, that is going on a crusade to try and make sure that these females actually get heard properly. And most of the time now, because people have bypassed Rotherham and trying to move on, is a case of they are not being responded to. The police do not want to speak to them anymore. The police do not want to do anything. The courts don't want to take them to court anymore. They do not want to prosecute these people. And even in some of the cases with Rotherham themselves, they do not want to take them to court. And they say that instead of them raping somebody or statutory rape, that people that can't give consent are now giving consent. So people, if the people under the age of 16 that were going out apparently with 27-year-olds or 22-year-olds are now able to give consent to that 22-year-old or 27-year-old because it's easier than actually, taking them to court over statutory rape at the least.
Jesus. So I hadn't heard that. I did catch the girl that was.
Way to stick to your principles.
Was it the Tommy Robinson tells this story all the time? The girl that was drugged into near unconsciousness that was arrested for prostitution.
Yes.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. And look, my answer to this is that at some point, what you are going to get is a legitimate mafia, and what they are going to do is solve this problem.
Well. There's a lot of people that are being, should you say, vigilantes at this moment in time. I remember a couple of stories of literally people driving vans into kebab shops because they knew that the kebab shops at the top were actually money making and actually storing females in the top. Because if you were to look at Newcastle, where there was over 1,500 people that were involved in over 600 females that had been moved from Newcastle, trafficked, sexed, and then put back into different parts of the country. In fact, some of them went as far as Spain to be trafficked. And they all know this, but rather than them doing it for trafficking and like human trafficking and all that sort of stuff, they didn't want to follow the case anymore, to the point where they actually made a special investigation team that was finding out too much stuff. They cut the funding to it, so
What?
it had to be disbanded. Yeah.
Like, sorry, you're being efficient at your job, proving that there's a problem that we don't want there to be a problem for, so you need to go.
Pretty much.
You're doing your job. You don't do that around.
Hey, we're English. We don't like being good at anything anymore.
Seriously, though.
Yeah.
Really, though, I mean, what the EDL that everybody was complaining about for a while, and I'm sure they are some giant racist organization. On the other hand, I was watching this and going, so your complaint is that they are going down to people who are raping children and telling them to fuck themselves, and that is, for the most part, the it of it. That's it. Right. And okay, fine, they beat the hell out of a couple of guys. There isn't a single person I know in this country, when you go to them, they're like, all right, man, your kid just got raped by some illegal immigrant. Oh, I'm killing the bitch.
Right.
Like,
yeah, exactly. No, exactly. I don't even have kids, and I'm completely and utterly with both of you on that aspect. If somebody even come near me that said that they'd done something to a child, I don't care. I'm going to prison. I'm going to hurt you, because that's just not something I'm going to stand by.
And this is what I'm saying is, at some point you are going to crest enough of the populace getting to that point, and you're going to end up with what amounts to a mafia and a crazy war where between the cops who won't have guns, and I'm telling you, Google that Ludi submachine gun, the mafia will, right?
Yeah, right.
And the populace will be supporting the mafia, going, well, all I'm saying is there's less crime now.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a partial supporter of what Tommy Robinson does. A partial supporter. I don't think he's racist, and I don't think that he's going against it because of them being Muslim or anything else like that. I don't think he's doing it for that reason. There are certain antics that I don't support, but as for this, I completely and utterly support. And the reason why he gets so much of a following is because he's the only one that's talking about it in mainstream media. And the only thing that people really want about stories like this is to know that justice is being done, and the fact that people are caring and are listening to the people that are coming forward. That's what got me so pissed off for my own country, that the BBC and all the rest of them didn't want to fucking report on it because it went against their narrative. Sorry, guys, fuck your narrative. Report the fucking news, regardless of who does it.
Right. You would think, but I mean, to some degree or another, that's how we ended up with the channel, so I don't know how much I can complain.
Right. It's kind of the same problem here. That's why we started doing the things that we're doing.
Well, I think I throw my own hat into that ring as well. I think that's the reason why I was throwing myself into it, that it just needs to be brought to people's attention. And if I can bring more people's attention to what's going on, then fair enough. Even if it's a case of my own biases, which I do have, obviously, that actually make people look into it and they come to a similar idea to what I do, then fair enough. But even if they don't come to the similar idea, at least they've looked into it rather than it not being reported.
Right. And I mean, for us, we don't expect people to agree with us on all the things that we talk about.
And they don't.
And they don't. We hear it all the time. And we're okay with that. The issue is that we want it to be an actual conversation, and B, we want it to be called for what it actually is.
Yeah. And though I gotta say, back to your what is it? Your immigration problem, we'll say, in various Tommy Robinson related rape issues. Whoever that, and I forget her name, but you guys had like an MP or something that got raped in her house by a migrant and then lied about it and said it was a white guy or something. And I was like, this is one of those moments where you have clearly just gone too far. This, like, I am so attached to the idea politically that there can be nothing wrong with these people, that literally someone can rape me and I will lie about it to protect them. What is
But it's not to protect them. That's the thing. It's not to protect them, and it's not to protect the women themselves or anything else like that. It's to protect their ideology. Because if the left... See, this is the difference where the right and the left are different. The left will use their ideology as an identity, where the right will change their ideology to be able to go with what is happening, not their identity. The left is completely and solely responsive to their identity. So if you challenge their ideas, you challenge their identity. And if
Why
somebody...
they're always all offended.
Exactly, because you're not challenging the ideas that they have, you're challenging their worldview, rather than differences with the right and the left.
Right. Whereas, like for us, our ideas are not our identity, and they are subject to change when new information becomes available.
Yeah.
And with the left, no, that's not the case. New information is irrelevant to what their ideology is.
Yeah. No, I completely and utterly agree with that, because I'm going to say it twice. But no,
But from that particular point, a wellspring of problems come.
Definitely, because if you try and talk to somebody about an ideology and it's their identity, then you can't talk to them about an ideology. They can't separate the two, because then you're attacking the person in their eyes rather than attacking the ideas. And that's the reason why the right and the left can't have dialogue at this moment in time. Not because that they have opposing ideas and because those ideas are so polarized that it stops them. It's because one is ideologically their worldview and the other is just ideology. It's just an idea that they've had. They can't do the both. They can't separate it.
Right. Well, it's just like trying to criticize problems we might see in Islam. At that point in time, you're an Islamic phobic and you hate all Muslims, which is not the case. We have some problems with some of the edicts written down in the Quran. The people, I'm sure, are nice.
I'm not.
I know. But I'm trying to come up with some sort of example.
Sure.
But that's the thing, though. Do you have to be nice to be able to talk about an ideology? Now, just because that you have opposing ideas and you're not a nice person doesn't mean that you're not cordial when you speak. Because being nice doesn't mean that you have to be cordial. That's just showing respect.
Right. And that's the whole thing, is the way they look at it is the moment you criticize what they believe, and therefore it is their identity, you are being disrespectful.
Well, when your entire life is wound up in an idea, regardless of what the idea is, criticizing the idea is criticizing your life.
Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, I get where they're coming from. They're just wrong.
It's exactly that. It's like, if somebody was to talk to me about the ideas of Brexit and whatnot, then I can separate the idea of Brexit with my ideas of it. I can then go, well, what's your point of view? What's your reasoning for behind this? And then I can talk to them about it. But as soon as somebody that is so dedicated to their worldview, as in the European Union has to be upheld or whatever, you get the remarks of, well, I'm not going to talk to you about ideology. I'm going to call you a xenophobe and run away. Now, that's not because that they don't want to talk to you. It's because they don't want their worldview challenged. Because if you challenge their worldview, it challenges them to look at themselves. And let's be honest, most people don't want to look at themselves.
No. That is a very fair point.
I
I thought it was because you're a vampire.
Oh,
yeah.
But to some degree, I don't even know if it's that far, right? So, I mean, that's part of it, right? Is I don't want a moment of self-reflection, but we have taught people long ago that you don't have to approach the idea of self-reflection if you can just call your opposition racist.
Yeah.
Like, we've gone to a meta level of lack of self-reflection here.
Right.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Most people would have a form of self-reflection because you don't form ideologies, you don't form identities, you don't form yourself without having a look at what you choose to do. But because of the way certain things are nowadays, maybe with education, maybe with the idea of saying that your identity is all that matters, that the identity itself has now become your ideology.
And it's the same thing with Black Lives Matter, the same thing with Antifa, the same thing with being a communist or a socialist. These are not ideas anymore. They're banners to stand for. They're something to fight for rather than it being an idea. And I think we need to stop that completely.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's easier, right? And I mean, like orders of magnitude easier than actually spending some time with information or challenging your own ideas, going and listening to people that say that you're wrong, that sort of thing. That is difficult in the cognitive dissonance sort of sense. And if you just go, and this kills me because even all of the people who are supposedly anti-identitarian do it as a this, then I speak, and I'm supposed to infer that something matters because you are British, American, French, right? Like, I mean, okay, I'm sure you have a greater understanding of your local area than I do. Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, like during our last election cycle here, I got a number of canvassing calls trying to get my vote to oppose Trump and blah blah blah. I'm like, well, what wrong has he done here in the state of California? Well, I don't have that. And then shut up and leave me alone. I'll make my vote the way I'm going to vote.
Yeah.
But you're a Mexican.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But it's the Hispanic Latino. I'm like, yeah, and I don't agree with a lot of them. Shut up.
But that's exactly it. Just because the left have done an amazing thing where intersectionality in itself, whether you agree that it's feminism, culture, Marxism, whatever the fuck you think it is, but intersexuality in itself is a case of, because you are now breaking everything and compartmentalizing everything, it's a case of, well, I'm a Mexican, so I need to vote with you need to vote with the Mexicans. Oh, you're a libertarian, you need to vote with the libertarians. Oh, you have this view on gun violence, you need to vote this way. It's a case of, no, we don't need to do that because of this. We do this because we think that way. There's a difference. Identity shouldn't play any part of politics whatsoever. It's all to do with ideas.
Right. You're part of this group. You have to vote this way. I'm like, well, no. I don't actually have to be part of this group. I happen to be Mexican. I don't have to vote the same way that the majority of Mexicans do.
Exactly.
It's not a requirement.
Well, I will say one thing that I've always found very interesting with the left, that they always go, for instance, if you had a person of color, a black man, whatever, and that person was completely against Black Lives Matter because he thinks that all lives matter, then the most racist things I've ever heard have come from the left to that conservative black man, because he
Uncle Tom.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh yes, all of those words that of everyone of lighter complexion are not allowed to use.
Exactly. But the thing is, the thing is though, even the white left will say those things and will be accepted as not racist because they're on the side of the left.
Oh no! They still can't use those words. They can make all the appropriate implication of a racist tonality, but they can't actually use those words.
I don't know. Louis C.K. seems to be a case study in this right now, right?
Okay.
Yes.
The more progressive and crazy lefty he is openly, the more he is permitted to say whatever he wants.
Okay, then.
On the other hand, he got touched by the Me Too thing.
Yeah.
With not really.
Okay.
Right. But close enough, and we're too stupid to talk about what actually happened as a culture at this point. So there was a Me Too claim against Louis C.K., so that's good enough.
Yeah.
But from there, though, he came out and he made a bunch of jokes about the left, which was that was it. Crucifixion time.
Yep.
Because if he was still just running out there making fun of the right and saying how they were terrible and being the progressive douche that he is every other day, then it would have been fun.
Sure. No, I completely agree. I mean, with the Me Too movement itself, I want to say it started off with good intentions, but I don't think it did. And the reason why I don't think it started off with good intentions is because, take Harvey Weinstein as the arbiter or the sole perpetrator at the beginning for Me Too. It was a case of everybody knew for at least a decade what he was doing. This wasn't about women's empowerment. This wasn't about getting justice. This wasn't about people getting justice for rape or anything else like that, or even going against the status quo. This was about women being able to use their power in the media to be able to go against successful men. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think that Harvey Weinstein is a fucking arsehole who raped women. Because he did. Because he fucking did.
Therein is the question, right? So can we all pause for a moment and say that if I could, you know, any of us could, like, have sex with someone to become a millionaire, we would probably do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every dude on the planet just went, me.
Right. I mean, I might have to apologize to my wife profusely, but something tells me
you could do it with a new Ferrari.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
$5 million for it.
Right.
$5 million.
And so no one would call this rape, right? If I had to go find, I mean, look, and let's make this as realistic as we can. If I had to go have sex with Hillary Clinton for millions of dollars for the rest of my life, but that was the trade and I knew it, then is this rape? And nobody would say yes. But flip this around.
Yep.
When you got to go have sex with a fat, disgusting pig named Harvey Weinstein to become a multi-millionaire for the rest of your life, now it's rape.
Right.
No, I completely and totally agree with you. I mean, it's the fact of saying, well, it's prostitution rape. Because this is basically what it is. It's just, instead of you giving an actual payment for what you're doing, as in receiving something for a particular service, you're kind of not phoning it in, but you're kind of going round the houses to get to that point.
Right. And look, I'm sure every single one of them would be pissed to hear me say it, but effectively, they're just the most successful prostitutes in history.
Yeah. I mean,
look at Marilyn Monroe. Most people would say that she's not a decent actress, but by God, she's got some nice titties and ass.
I mean,
yeah,
you know,
she has some assets that we love to admire.
Yes.
Exactly. And look, use what you got, fine, but then don't come tell me later that it's rape.
Yeah.
Right. He threw out a carrot. You took it. It's done. That's not rape.
Yeah. I mean, let's throw a little bit of, should we say, an equilibrium of an argument here. We're not saying that if somebody says no, that they don't want to do this, that if somebody like Harvey Weinstein pursued them to do it, that it wasn't forced sex or forced rape. But if it's a case of they both agree that I want this part and all I need to do to get this part is give him a blowjob, that's not rape. Yep, using power, fair enough. But it's not rape.
Nope.
And sure, I look morally reprehensible. Fine. I don't need to have an argument on this.
Yeah, no, that's
all fine.
We agree. Morally reprehensible. Words.
I have an excuse. What's yours?
I don't know.
Something American.
Yeah. But the issue is when it is agreed upon action between two people, when one is profiting over over an action being performed, we call that prostitution, not rape.
And there it is. Look, not to say that porn is necessarily a great source for anything, but on the other hand, casting couch porn has been around for 50 years.
Yes.
If the idea has permeated the culture to the point that we have created porn about it for half a century, we all knew, right?
Yeah.
Whether anyone wanted to say it or not, we all knew.
Well, it's the same thing that anybody that's ever made anything in Hollywood. When the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein come out, I can't remember the actor's name, but one of the actors, I think it was Ben Affleck, maybe? Don't quote me. But I think it was Ben Affleck that kind of said, well, I kind of knew what was going on, but I wasn't sure. And that's been the same thing that's been happening for, as you said, decades.
Right.
And everybody knew what was going on in Hollywood. Why did it take for now, so to speak, with lack of better terminology, as it's just a couple of years ago, why is it now that everybody is now claiming about it? It's nothing to do with the fact of people wanting to get justice for what happened. It's a case of realizing that they can use what happened to further their own careers and make themselves better about what's going on, or relevant again.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
Queen of the Me Too movement, Alyssa Milano, right?
Oh
Yeah.
God, yeah.
Who, by the way, who has done what in the past 10 years? Was literally no one, and all of a sudden, back in the limelight.
Yep.
Yeah, literally back in the limelight, having forced sex with a 17-year-old at the time, and then paying him off not to say anything.
Can't talk about that. That's not acceptable. That's not part of Me Too. Stop. But reverse, back up.
Reverse course. No. It was my deceased husband that arranged all those payments.
That's a make you want to punch somebody.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. It was the dead guy. Prove me wrong.
Right.
Yeah. See, I'd say love. That it's more of a pejorative. I'm just trying to say that I found it very interesting that when she was called out for misusing her power at the time to forcibly have sex with somebody, the same in which she and others claimed Harvey Weinstein had done, she's guilty of, but yet nobody really called her out or expelled her from the movement. In actual fact, she's still there.
Movement. She's not suffering repercussions. In fact, her victim was put on TV thereafter to talk about it, and he was gone after.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, understand that not to go full MRA on this, but we live in a culture where women can do no wrong.
Right.
And I mean, that's what it comes down to, right?
Well, I know.
Because if any of the things that any of these people have done were done by men, the crucifixions would be public and ongoing.
Right. Well, as
you
they
know
are.
the reason for that. But you know the reason for that is because men will, bit of a sexist term, but men themselves will look at a situation and go, "Yeah, he's a cunt." Women themselves will go, "Oh, the woman's in the wrong here, but you know she's a woman," and so will the men. It's like there is double standards for feminists themselves to go, "Oh, okay, well, feminism is all about equality." Then use it. Then fucking use it. If it goes for one side, use it properly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and look, strangely enough, I think we have a show about this.
We do.
You know, where quite literally in our own past, there was someone showed up to the pair of us and was like, "I was raped by someone," and we go, "It was over here. He lives here." No names given or anything. Knock on the door, ready to kick someone in the teeth, and Bob,
my dude, what the hell?
I hear you're a rapist.
Right?
I'm a what? No.
Well,
And
I was going to say the thing with that is
personal connection, though. Think about how this goes. It's always like that guy that I don't know is clearly Hitler.
But
right.
I mean, the thing is with this, if anybody wants to think that the left don't use rape as a weapon, or the accusation of it, because the accusation is enough for most people to go, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
right.
Look at the way that Kavanaugh was treated when he was elected to Supreme Court. Now, I don't like Kavanaugh for some of his policies, especially when it happens to be with the Patriot Act. I don't like him for certain things, but to call him a rapist just to stop him becoming Supreme Court or part of it is absolutely redundant to me and proves the fact that they are not above using rape or forced rape accusations to get what they want politically.
Well,
that
I mean,
just proves it to me.
The part that had me giggling is you can see the look on a lot of people's faces like, "But we accused him of rape. Why wasn't he taken down already?"
Why haven't we shot him yet?
Yes. Why hasn't he been lynched? I mean, why hasn't he been hung?
What do you mean we're going to have a hearing and asking of questions? He should already be dead and 6 feet under. The accusation has been made.
That's the most amazing thing with like people like Now This, Vox, Riley Dennis, and other of ilk. We're all like, we should believe women. It's like, yeah, we should believe women, but that doesn't mean that we convict somebody on just the belief. We have a process. It's called due process.
Right.
Use it.
Well, and that's not viable, right? Because you can't have witches who have actual trials for witchery, right? Like, do some magic to get out of here. I can't. Well, we are going to kill her if she can't get out of there, right? Yeah.
But
she's probably not a witch.
But
at least she died a good Christian death.
Right.
which means she's now in a better place than with us. So it's all good.
Anything to rationalize it.
And if she had floated, we were going to kill her anyway.
She's a good Democrat. I mean, witch.
Yeah.
You mean Republican?
Whatever.
Because it's the Democrats that'll be doing the witch hunting.
Hey, look, they go after their own just fine.
That's true. Very true.
I mean,
You have a fair point. Fair point.
Yeah, no, I completely not agree. The one thing that I do absolutely love about the left is that if somebody on the left disagrees with somebody else on the left, it's not a case of having a disagreement anymore. That they will literally try to not kill, but completely and utterly get rid of the other person.
yeah.
And that's just amazing to me.
Yes. They will try to socially
Thank you.
destroy the person.
Yeah.
Social assassination
Social-
immediately.
Social assassination. Yeah, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
They use the same old tactics, just on each other.
In fact, it's worse.
The scant few of these people who have the smallest modicum of self-awareness,
Mhm.
they wow, is this really what it's like? You guys weren't kidding. This is terrible.
Well, no, we said that just for grins, but
Right.
See, at least with your country, yourselves, with the US and that, at least you can actually have the points of being able to talk about these sort of issues and actually be able to do something about it, possibly, depending if you can get enough numbers and whatnot. Where with us, as in the UK, we can't do that because we can't just go against our own government. We have to go against another 27 other governments to get the fuck what we want.
Yeah.
right. You have a much harder hill to fight on.
We do some of the same things. There's a line in the Constitution about treaties having to, being the law of the land, and so I mean we still end up with similar problems. So
Yep.
we just have a lot less of them, and occasionally have a POTUS that comes by and goes, "Oh, the treaty's the problem. Hell with that thing."
Yeah, no, I completely and utterly agree with that. I mean, the thing is with a lot of people would draw a comparison with how Trump got elected to how Brexit happened. That it was a right-wing propaganda. Some people on the left will go that it was pushed by fucking Russia, but whatever on that fucker. Whatever on that one. But
It was
a
the
lot-
Russia propaganda.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. The Russian bots are able to change like fucking millions of people's minds. That they had that power.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake.
Well, that comes down to a problem that the left has, which is that they, by nature of nearly every argument they make, have to believe that everyone is a failure at everything.
Yeah.
And there's no other way for any argument they make to be possible. Like, oh, there was a Pepe meme, and so everyone voted Trump. How big of retards do you think these people are?
Well, they all think the right wingers are redneck hillbillies, so very retarded.
Well, therein is the problem, right? Because according to them, all of the people who were previously going to vote for Bernie that voted for Trump saw a Pepe meme, and that was it. They were voting for Trump.
Gotcha.
The thing that I've always found very, very interesting with American politics is that when you vote for Obama, or had voted for Obama, I'm not saying you did, but when people did it themselves and voted for him twice, they were the most progressive set of groups of people. And it's just like, well, what do you think changed in 4 years? Do you think everybody just turned fucking racist, or do you think that people wanted to change, or just didn't like the way that Obama was running the country in itself? Do you not think that it had nothing to do with race and it had everything to do with politics?
Well, so I have unironically been told that, yes, a bunch of those people just became racists.
Oh,
And I was
okay.
like, are you serious?
Yeah, they just became racists. It wasn't the policies, because the policies are golden.
Yeah. And I mean, Obama did nothing wrong, clearly. He
Obviously.
didn't do nothing. He was a good boy.
Right.
Yeah. He didn't actually have the most scandals to actually hit any president sitting or beforehand ever.
No. Clearly. Because
Or get a Nobel Peace Prize for bombing the shit out of like 4 or 5 different countries and somehow still get a Nobel Peace Prize because of it. That didn't happen.
well, be fair, he got it in advance, and somehow or another, even the Nobel guys are like, You know, that might have been a mistake.
Maybe.
He is bombing a lot of people.
Right.
Oh, and that judicious use of tear gas at the border
Oh, Jesus.
that no one talked about until after Trump did it once.
That was by far one of my favorite moments in American politics ever. Trump is caging children. Those pictures are from 2014. That never happened.
Right.
Yep. Obama would never have done that. He was a humanitarian. Look at his noble peace. Oh, shit.
Right.
I've always loved that argument. The same thing is in, we should let the children in. It's like, you do realize that most people that are using the children and the reason why they get separated is because they do DNA tests and they prove that they're not family. The ones that are like not separated prove that they are family.
Right, and that's why Obama was accredited for helping out the human trafficking epidemic here that we have by putting not family members back together.
So that's the really crazy thing is like in the long term, yeah, right. In some way, they prove their family and that they should be here for asylum, and that's how it works. But that's not even what we're screaming about these days. We're complaining because if you show up here and you don't go through a port of entry and ICE arrests you, they put you in a holding of some variety, which I'm sure it's just a churched up way to say jail. Fine, don't care. And then when you go to court, you can't take your children. There is a Ninth Circuit court ruling that says you can't. And so they have to go somewhere. And that somewhere is not like Disneyland, so we're evil.
Right. So Trump is evil for following the laws the Democrats put in place.
Yeah, basically.
Well, my argument's always been to that. I mean, I know a lot of people on the left have always gone, yeah, but borders shouldn't exist. It's like, well, they do. And the laws are that if you come across illegally, then you are breaking the law. Now, some people would say it's a federal or a civic charge. I don't give a shit. It's still breaking the law at this point. Now, if you go to court and you go to prison, you don't take your kids with you. So why would you take your kids to prison if you're an illegal immigrant? Well, it does not make sense.
But their whole argument is it's supposed to be catch and release that Obama was doing by ignoring the laws set in place.
Often it's not. I mean, that's what you come down to is I don't like the law, stop enforcing it. And if you don't like it, then change it. Right. I mean,
right. That's the problem is that Trump's like, no, this is a law. We're following the law. We put the laws here in place because we thought they were a good idea. Just because Obama for the last 8 years did not enforce this particular law does not mean I'm not going to enforce this law.
Which, by the way, brings me to the it's a Trump policy to separate children at the border thing.
Yeah, that's definitely his.
Right. So, I mean, you take these people, the Ninth Circuit Court ruling, and you get, well, yeah, but he created the zero tolerance policy. And I am often just mind blown at this particular moment because, well, look, enforcing the law is a zero tolerance policy. That's why we write laws, right? Like, you don't want to ban guns except when we don't do, we just ignore it because reasons. You want to ban guns, right? Should this be a I won't enforce it half the time thing? Well, no, that's ridiculous. Exactly.
Right.
Like,
I completely not agree. I completely not agree. Though the thing is, at least you know where your borders fucking are. Like, you have your north border, you have your south border, and the two on the east and the west is in the oceans. We don't have fucking borders anymore.
Well, you have one over there next to Germany somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's called the Middle East.
Yeah, right.
Which is pretty porous.
Yes.
It depends on what person you speak to. They have a really great culture.
Gotcha.
It's very rich.
It's very progressive. After all, they're the best feminists that we know of.
Oh,
yes.
Islam is a feminist religion. Yeah, that's one way to put it, I guess.
If you think so.
Yeah. Ask if it likes the gays. Just ask.
It does like the gays. They fly very well from rooftops.
Right?
Or I mean, cranes. They like their cranes.
Right, cranes. They make the most interesting sounds when you hit them in the back of the neck with a sword.
Right.
Especially if they're adulterers. They like their stones.
Yes. Though. So for a long time, people on the right, basically everywhere, have said things like, "Oh yeah, if you think it's such a wonderful culture, why don't you go there and let me know how that goes?"
Yep.
And I'm having a problem saying that anymore because people are actually doing it.
Yeah, you look at the two poor ladies that went down to Morocco recently and had themselves beheaded, unfortunately.
Like,
It's just
this wasn't actually an invitation to go. This was supposed to be a warning not to go.
Right.
yes, exactly that. I've never. It's like See, this happened with the right more than it happened with the left. You had two people that were doing the cycling, and everybody said, "Oh, they shouldn't have gone where they went because it was bad." It's like, but they didn't just go there. They went from the bottom of Africa, South Africa, all the way up to the top, through Europe, through parts of the Middle East, and then unfortunately got killed in Tajikistan or Tajikistan, whatever. And people were going, "Oh yeah, but they should have known that it was ISIS," and because they said that they love people, that should be enough for them to have a laugh at their expense. Now, don't get me wrong. Jokes are jokes. I have no problem with people joking about certain things. That's fine. I understand. But saying that gives you credence to be able to say that what they did was wrong because they said this is the same as what leftism or left-leaning people would say about people on the right. Oh, we can say this because they're racist.
Right.
I don't like that terminology. I don't like that usage, and I never have done.
Right.
Well, that's also like saying, well, it's her fault because she wore a miniskirt.
Well,
It was, to be fair. I slipped. I fell. Sorry.
yeah.
It's like I slipped, I fell. She had a miniskirt, so my cock just slid right in.
57 times. Who knew?
Wait, that's a little bit low. 57 times is a little bit low. I'm just going to leave that out there. Though to be fair, I've never actually counted, so it might be high.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
back to it was an accident.
Right.
Oh, that's what we're going for. No, that's fair enough. I mean, I've always loved that ideology because it does go from right to left. That if somebody says something and it's against my principles or against my ideas, then I can laugh at them because of it. Don't get me wrong, again, jokes are jokes, fine, whatever. But just because of that particular reason, I don't see the reason why you can condemn them for it. Jokes are different, but condemning them for it, not.
I'm perfectly happy to condemn people who are running bad ideology and suffer the consequences of that, and laugh openly at them. Right.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is there's somewhere used to be class, I guess, and so look, when I say go to the Middle East and tell me how that works out, I don't actually mean go there. And when you do and get killed, then
well, they have failed in the second portion. They can no longer tell you what it was about.
yeah.
Yeah.
True.
But completely not true.
On the other hand, is this really the point where we should be like, haha, stupid leftists, or should we go back to what we started doing here and going, see, I was serious. Don't actually go there.
Exactly. Instead of us playing by our strengths or the conservative strengths of actually pointing out facts and the reasons why we do things and being the adults, if you will, so to speak, we're now adopting their ideologies and the way that they fight their battles. Where some people would say, well, to get to fight certain battles, you've got to get into the mud. Then if you drop your principles to do that, are you really winning?
Well, and you come to a thing that we, at least here on the internet, mocked openly for about a year and a half, which is there are no bad tactics, just wrong targets. And you can church that discussion up any way you want, but that's what that comes down to, right?
Yeah.
So we should use all of the tactics of the left because they have been in any way successful. And so therefore that works. Well, you don't then get to say they're wrong for doing it, right?
Exactly that. But the thing is, I don't say I love people that do this. I think I come from a different set where I like to stick to my principles and do what I want to do, so to speak, and explain what I want to do. Where if people are jumping on the left's tactics or the leftism tactics or whatever, then how are you any different from the left that you're fighting? And if you say that you are different, how are you when you're adopting their tactics? And second thing to that is, if you're not adopting the tactics and you still say that it's okay for other people to do that because, you know, it's fighting on their terms and whatever, then I have one question for you. You actually know that their terms are crap because guess what? You're fighting their terms. So all you're doing is alienating other people in the center that will go against both of you rather than making people agree with you.
Well, all of this is one of the world's oldest questions. Do the ends justify the means?
No,
right?
never.
And there, I mean, not never, right? If I'm buying a car, that, you know, me going to work, I'm sure the ends do justify the means. But if you can rationalize any means because you like the ends, then can we all just cut the bullshit and start killing each other?
Yeah, no, completely understand that. Yeah.
I mean, I think that is one of the reasons some gas chambers were built at one point in time.
I think that's more to do with fascism and pure hatred, but I probably.
Right. But the ends justified the means. He wanted them all gone, so he made gas chambers.
You know, fascism, in a strangest of things for me to say, gets a really bad name for being equated with Hitler, right?
It does.
And thus we ignore all of the other things that fascism actually is, right? Because Mussolini had no attachment to racism.
Nope.
He didn't care and invented fascism for all intents and purposes. So,
Definitely.
You know, I mean, fascism is, and I say this and everybody gets pissed off, but it's effectively what we're doing in the West right now with every government.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say that, you get, we're not killing the Jews, as though killing the Jews is an economic policy.
Right.
It's not.
No, I agree with that. But I would say that with the idea of fascism, I think most people now, too much alcohol. I would say that most people nowadays don't understand what the actual definition of fascism is. Where so many people on the left would go, well, I want big governments. And I'm not saying all. Some people don't want any governments because they want anarchy. Fair enough. Different ideas, different ideologies. But most people on the socialist stance would go, I want big governments. Guess what fascism wants? Focus on the government in a nation. That's literally what fascism is.
It was just the nationalist take on socialism.
Exactly.
I mean, like, it's not ironically named. It is national socialism.
Yeah, exactly that. That's the reason why so many people would say that Hitler himself was a national socialist. Now, I'm not necessarily of that agreement. I can understand their arguments from it. Hitler mainly did everything to piss off the communists, so he would literally call it that to piss them off. So I don't really understand that argument, but I can understand where it's coming from. With Mussolini, though, when they say, well, no, he's a fascist, it's like, yes, he created fascism, as we've quite rightly alluded to. But yeah, when you use fascism nowadays, it's for somebody I dislike. It's basically become a right-wing prerogative for, I'm going to say it, nigger. It's literally just turned into that word for right-leaning people.
Effectively, it's just a new way of saying asshole.
Yes.
Yeah. And it loses the historical lesson, right? And I would push back a little on the idea that Hitler wasn't a National Socialist. He was. He wasn't a believer, right? I mean, he was very clearly had his own preferences of, you know, things to get done, and that very much did involve things like killing the Jews and making the German super race, which turns out fascism is only like peripherally useful for. So that's as much as he was attached to it. This is peripherally useful to get me what I want, therefore we'll do it.
Sure.
And in the meantime, it gave him lots of power to actually make those sorts of things get done. So, you know, in that sense, he was a National Socialist. Mussolini, on the other hand, you find someone who actually thinks this is a good idea and is trying to forcibly use fascism because it accomplishes the ideas of socialism.
Yeah. I mean, so many people have all, there's a Pacific channel, I think it's called Three Arrows, and they did a particular response to Suzes, I think his name is, the American Indian. Or Sousa, or I can't remember his name. Sorry, that was that. Yes. That's the one, Dinesh. And he was saying that Mussolini was actually the founder of fascism and everything else like that, but he was a socialist to begin with. So socialism is the roots of fascism. And you have people like 3 Hours going, well, no, that's not true. It's like, if somebody has a foundational belief where he's had it all of his life and then creates something that is so strikingly similar to socialism, but just has a national take on the idea of socialism, why is that not socialism?
Mussolini was the first to know true socialism guy, right? Because even in his own writings about socialism, he talks about, look, there's not going to be a worldwide revolution. There's not going to be any of these things that we were all told, and we know that now. All of these other places that have instituted socialism, it has failed, and it was a miserable failure. Look no further than the Soviet Union, which is a disaster. And, he was the guy that pulling the Bernie Sanders right now. Well, Venezuela is great until it's failing, and then it's not great, right? And so this is how we could actually make socialism work, right? These are the small tweaks that would make socialism functional. And somehow or another, these things must be divorced because Hitler.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that. The unfortunate thing is, with the left in general, now this does happen with the right, and it does happen with people that generally win history, but it happens more prevalently on the left, where the left will try to change historical features that have happened, but change it over time with changing definitions very slightly.
Yeah.
And then it comes to a point of you going, well, what does fascism actually really mean? And then you are so deluded in what your idea is of fascism that you don't actually know the definition. Most people, when you ask them what the definition of fascism is, they go Nazi. And it's like, no, that's not it.
That's not it. I mean, that's why I keep a particularly old dictionary at my house so that I know what definitions were at one point in time versus now.
Right. Because we're getting to the point where when, who was it? Merriam-Webster put the definition of literally to be figuratively. I mean, the 2 years ago now, because, the California Valley girl, literally, like, I just got shot.
Right.
And so they quite literally added figuratively to the definition of literally. And I was like, no, words don't mean anything.
Words don't mean anything. And just like about every 6 months or so, they change the definition of gender.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that's a big thing with you, that you don't like the definitions of gender, but you like the ideas of definitions of sex. Me personally, I'm completely and utterly with you. Gender is a social construct. No, it's just another way of fucking saying sex, you bastards.
well, no, that originally it wasn't. Gender originally, when it was first introduced into the English language, meant the masculinity or femininity of a word.
True.
It didn't apply to people at all. Like him and her. One is a masculine word, one is a feminine word. They have gender. Gender did not apply to people at all.
Oh, that's fair enough. That's something that I didn't actually know. I will hold my hands up. I did not know that.
This is Peter's rager.
So. Yeah, this is one of my pet peeves when they're like, well, the transgenders, and I'm like, they're not words, they're people. Gender does not apply to them.
It's fair enough. That's fair enough. Don't get me wrong. I have. The thing is that I have with people that are of transgender, I don't have a problem with what you want to identify as. I don't fucking care. You want to be a fucking otherkin or whatever, I don't care. But the problem that I have is when you are forcing society to tell me that you are of something. That I have a problem with. You want to be anything? I don't care. You tell me I have to, I have a problem.
Right. Do what you want. Live your life the way you want. You can't force me to recognize you as something I don't recognize you as, though.
Well, exactly.
Now you're back to the idea of freedom as a concept, and I don't think it's a concept that we acknowledge anymore.
No.
I mean, honestly, there's a debate on our channel in which someone quite literally argues that freedom is slavery for, 5 or 6 minutes before I was like, you're just arguing that freedom is slavery, right? It's ridiculous.
I don't
Well,
get that. How can freedom be slavery? I
So
don't.
if if people are free and there isn't this giant socialist edifice, then you're forcing me to live the way that you want to live, and so you're a hypocrite because if we had all this freedom that you wanted, you would be forcing me to live the way that you're saying I should live.
No, I'm not
No.
forcing you to live any way that I want you to live. I'm
No,
saying go live
I-
your life.
Freedom, live your life however you choose.
Right. And so, you know, it was right about there that I went, you're arguing freedom is slavery.
Right.
Stop it. And
Well, I was talking to somebody that was trying to say that families, the idea of a family, man, woman, and son or daughter, needs to be abolished because parents can't look after their children and the state should look after their children because they can have professionals do that.
Right.
that's
No, not right. There's no right to that whatsoever.
I mean, you are very correct, Stalin. I mean,
Right.
Jesus.
Can you guess he's an open border person as well?
Shocking.
Yes.
Well, that's another thing that we culturally in the West have just given into entirely. If someone is an expert for any reason, then nothing they say can be questioned as long as they're saying whatever I like, which is ridiculous, but
Right.
it is the actual output of this, right? So, I mean, this comes up in any subject. Like,
Yeah.
You stupid parents, none of you have any idea how to raise children, so we should go have experts do it. Well, look, the policies that they have been prescribing produce things like the millennials, so I'm not so sure this is a good idea.
Right.
Probably not. But
But see, right now we're at the prime example point where we point out to the chat that we started on talking about Brexit.
That's
We're
true.
nowhere near there.
Well, are we?
no.
Because, I mean, I think this, fair enough, we have drifted to many a thing that has nothing to do with Brexit. But to some degree or another, I think this is how you get Brexit.
It's a possibility, but
Right.
I would like to jump on what you actually said, and I do love the fact that people go, "Oh well, I trust this professional." Now, when I say this, I don't like everything that he says, but he's a professional in what he does. Jordan Peterson will tell you certain things that you fucking hate, and because he's a professional, you tell him that he's not good enough to be one.
Yeah.
But as soon as you agree with somebody, you know, he's a professional. You can't argue with a professional.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't get that
That's
logic.
as long as they're a professional saying something that I like, because if it's a professional saying something you don't like, then clearly they're an idiot.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Well, I mean, by what metric are we judging who we should be listening to? And the answer always, no matter how hard you push, no matter who you push with, comes down to, I like what that guy said.
Yeah.
And nothing more, right? They'll church
Right.
it up, they'll say it in different ways, but it's always that.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, I have this bias myself, which I try and fight quite a lot. When I like somebody and that person says something, I generally believe them. Now, I don't always. I will go and do my research. But because I have a bias towards that person, I generally believe what they say because of my biases.
Sure.
I think that the difference is, though, the tribalism is that once somebody on the left says something that I completely agree with, then it doesn't matter. I'm going to defend them to the death.
Yeah.
Where other people are just like, well, I kind of agree with him, but you know, what he said on this point is kind of shit. Where other people are just like, nope, full blown, I'm following him. Like Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, for instance. Some people will follow him to the death because he's great on social issues. Fair enough. Don't understand all of them, but maybe he has got some good points. I don't know. I don't really care. But then he goes on to the point of supporting the IRA. Then he goes on to supporting Hamas, saying he's his friends, going to Hamas graves and laying wreaths, saying certain things to Jewish communities and telling Jewish communities that they voted the wrong way. I have a complete disagreement with all of those things, obviously, like most logical people would. But yet, people that follow him are blinded to that and say it's just a conspiracy theory to do something to him. I don't understand it.
I get this in the inverse, right? So the certainly the most famous example of this is Reagan and the assault weapons ban, right? Which is why for like 6 months, everyone in any sort of media was going, when they were talking about bringing the assault weapons ban back, it was, well, Reagan supported the assault weapons ban, to which everyone on the right went, and?
Yeah. No, exactly that.
But you guys like Reagan. Yeah, I like some things that he did, and I very clearly don't like some things that he did.
Well, that's exactly it. They can't separate it. They don't seem to separate the fact that, oh, I like somebody, but I don't like everything about them.
Yeah. Shocking. Right. Like, it makes me wonder what relationships are like for these people, because look, there is no relationship on this planet in which both parties don't do something that the other one finds unpalatable, right? Yeah. Like, it's not a big deal. Maybe it doesn't matter, and so you just overlook it, or ideally, it becomes part of your life and it is just tolerated forever. But on the other hand, it is there, and the hero worship of the other party does not need to exist.
Right.
I completely and utterly agree with that statement. Completely and utterly. Because I dislike most of the things that the Conservatives seem to be doing in the UK. I hate most of the stuff that they're doing. But yet, the alternative is Jeremy Corbyn. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to go out of my way to support Jeremy Corbyn on his socio-economical problems and his ideas. But at the same time, I'm still going to call the fucking Conservatives out for the bullshit that they pull. Because I'm not ideologically linked to the Conservatives. Right. I just identify with more of their ideals. That's all.
You do more right than that idiot.
Right.
I mean, which, look, I get all the time, this sounds like Trump tards. Exactly, Chad, right? So this is the thing, is I end up defending Trump like almost always. It's ridiculous, right? And then I get things like, well, you just love the man. I'm like, there's 20 minutes of me bitching about him banning bump stocks.
Right. No.
That's what it is.
We want to take the opportunity to mock the Cheeto in chief just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. But when you guys are going out in left field saying things which are just objective lies, we're going to point it out. It's not that we like and support Trump. It's that you're lying. We're going to call that out.
Right.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. It's the same thing with, as well, equating to the European Union and everything else. When everybody goes on about Brexit and the Brexiteers and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about and everything else like that, it's like, but we're not trying to say that the economical ideas are going to be better if we leave Europe. We're saying that we don't want to be dictated to by Europe.
If you guys aren't, I'll say it. You would be economically better off if you left the European Union.
Oh, no, I agree. But that was never the argument of anything to do with Brexit, or not the majority of the people that were arguing. Most of the majority of people arguing for Brexit was about sovereignty, or the illusion thereof, if we should go down that road.
Well, so this is a problem that I think most everyone who's ever argued with the left deals with. And it's probably the quickest thing that you can do to get me to call you a leftist, is if I say, I have this problem and we should fix it, and this is how I think we should do it. If you start arguing about anything not that, I mean, anything, and it doesn't matter what it, like, for example, UK should have sovereignty, we should leave the European Union, but economics, like, well, okay, we can have the economic argument if you like, but what happened to the sovereignty discussion? We were just over here. Why are we now over here?
Right.
Because it's shifting the goalposts. Because they know that they can't win on that issue. It's like whenever you talk to, especially with anybody on the left, when you talk to anybody on the idea of sovereignty, they always go, well, the EU has forms of democracy. How can other countries vote in on what you are going to do, be a democracy that is beneficial to your country? It makes no logical sense on democracy of any definition that I know of.
So the only way you can get there, and this is another problem I have on the regular with people, is that democracy must be held up as a god. So as long as there is democracy, infallibility is available. And anything short of that, going, well, okay, so the European Union has a democracy, but is that working out in a sense where people, this is actually getting better for everyone? Or is this working out in the way that democracies get to be when there's gibs to be handed out, which is to say everyone votes to take something from everyone else, right? Yes. So as soon as you're on the chopping block, everyone will come by and see what they can take from you.
Yeah, no, exactly that. I mean, you have a look at how the European Union have treated Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Italy, Greece, and you think that's the way that you want people to treat you, where you vote the wrong way, that you're going to get sanctioned the shit out of because you voted the wrong way, or have conspiracy theories come out of the way going, well, the right rigged the election because nobody could ever beat socialist utopia within the European Union.
Right.
It boggles my mind when people go, oh, the European Union is a democracy. No, it's not. It's bureaucracy. There is no democracy in it.
Right. Well, I think we're coming up on, what, 2.5 hours here?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
But hey, man, it was definitely enjoyable. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem. No problem whatsoever.
Thank your chat for being relatively nice to us. We haven't been called assholes or anything.
That's true.
Oh, you ruined it.
And it's 3, 2, 1.
Nope, doesn't happen.
Well,
it seems all right.
Calc the delay appropriately.
Pretty much, yeah.
No problem.
Also, it would be no calls us assholes first.
Well, that's our chat.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you want to promote your channel and everything else, that and what you do, please be my guest.
Sure. So we sort of do this, right?
Yeah, you're right. It was nope.
Sure enough. So I'm Don. He's Peter. We talk about news stories these days. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's 2 news stories per show. It's in the vicinity of 20 minutes, and it's not lying about it. I think it is.
Yeah, we do our best to be open and truthful, even if it makes us uncomfortable.
Yes. And look, we're I don't know, 2 guys, right?
Yeah, just 2 guys,
plebs, as it were. So on the other hand, if you, as Chad is doing at the moment, actually, right, correct us with things, we will publish corrections. So I don't,
yes,
on the other
like
hand,
being corrected.
We're well, I at least am heavily economically right wing. So don't be surprised with what you get.
Yes.
Perfect.
Other than that, youtube.com, 2 plebs talk news.
Yes.
Pretty sure.
Something like that.
Or 2 plebs. I'm sure it will be in the description.
It is. It's all linked in the description.
That it was.
Yeah, he did. So, he put it there. We're trusting him now.
Nothing can go wrong.
Yeah, nothing can go wrong. I only had to change my microphone 3 times. Nothing can go wrong. No, that's absolutely fine. I'm so glad that I was able to have a proper chat with you. I kind of knew that it was going to go off into the weeds, because when you have people that have not the same ideas and same political standings, but when you have people that are similar, the conversation just naturally progresses into different topics. And that natural progression is what I'm interested in. Because with that natural progression, you can actually see why people think the way they do, rather than just being the way they are. Yeah. I think we miss that.
And that's why we appreciate the natural progression conversations.
Yeah. That's how, like I said, we do this.
Yeah, we do this. You just saw our show for the most part.
Right. This is not too far off of what the cutting room floor will be.
Pretty much.
Except that there will be prescribed topics. So.
Oh, yeah. So if you guys are interested in another live stream, we do it again tomorrow.
Yeah. 10, I think, in the UK. No, 11 in the UK is when we start those. So,
well, it's 3 o'clock our time.
Yeah.
What's the time over yours at the minute?
11:30 ish.
Yeah, that's a lot later. That's around about 10 o'clock our time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for us, it's only 3 in the afternoon, but yeah, back to there's a pond difference in time.
Yeah, right.
Just a small one.
Small ponds.
Tiny thing.
The little skip.
Right then, guys, thank you very much for turning up to watch the stream. Thank you very much for taking the time to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe to 2 Plebs as well, because they're very fucking interesting and I've loved talking to them today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye for now. Speak to you all again real soon. Bye-bye.